Things just got worse and worse and worse as the night went on. Again, valiant effort down the stretch for the Bucs. Just too little, too late. Let's go down and let's see what Coach Fletch and the rest of the crew has to say. As always, go Bulls. So let's head into the locker room right now and see what the guys have to say about that one. Wow. Where do the Buccaneers go from here? What an incredible atmosphere. What a good win for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They snapped a 7-game winning streak. How we feeling, Bucs Nation? It's time to party, baby.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Recher podcast here on Thursday, September 11th, 2025. Some exciting news to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin return to practice. We'll talk a little bit more Buccaneers later on the program. Rob Maaddi is going to join us from the Associated Press at 1 o'clock. And after Todd Bowles speaks, we'll not play some of it, but we'll discuss some of the things that he said around 1:25 today. We also have Collin Sherwin joining us on the program from Bay Area Examiner, one of the guys that have been really following USF and USF athletics for a very long time. He's going to join us at 12:30 today. Make sure you guys follow me on all social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. Like and subscribe on YouTube. We have a new sponsor that's going to be starting next week, so some exciting things there. We also have a meeting with the t-shirt company today at 2:30. So we are growing and getting bigger and better every single day. I can't do it without you guys, though. The super chats out there, $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, whatever you guys can do to contribute to the program. Please do so. The one great thing about this, platform is that, like, something different here with me. Like, I can talk for an hour and a half, or an hour, 45 minutes or whatever, and then be done. And there's no commercial breaks. There's no mandate on what I have to talk about. We don't have to talk about the NFL at the top of the show. I get the distinct pleasure to be able to talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. And, just speaking with a really, really dear friend of mine, somebody that I care very deeply about. Life feels very different today. And as much as I want to say no, it doesn't, because the way you feel about your loved ones, I don't know if that ever changes, especially this person in particular. It is. For a couple of different reasons. Now, what happened yesterday with the whole Charlie Kirk shooting is something that it happened right at the end of the Beckles and Recher podcast yesterday. We were at the Dignitary Cafe, and Charlie Kirk was a guy that I really started watching a lot of his videos over the last year or two, because I'm one of those people that I really want to hear differing viewpoints, even if I don't agree with you 100%. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear where you're coming from. I want to hear where I can find common ground. Too many people hear a couple of things that they don't like from a certain individual and say, I'm never listening to that person again, or they categorize them as a certain way, which I think is extremely unfair. And I'm not just talking about Charlie. I'm talking about anybody in this life. It's kind of going back like we were talking about the AP voter, right? Somebody commented on the stream on YouTube and said, I really appreciate how passionate you were about this topic, but you didn't get personal. That meant a lot, because it meant that I was trying to be as calm and as composed and as balanced as humanly possible to talk about what really mattered, even though we did have a differing viewpoint, even though I didn't like the way she went about her business. There's a way to articulate that with passion and energy and, a want for change without being disrespectful to the person as her character. And she's probably a really nice person. We don't know that. But what happened yesterday is just, man, it's to watch that and to watch some of the negative responses from people, just some of the hard responses from people. It brings, sometimes things like this bring out the worst in people. And for all those people out there that'll say, well, where are these people when they're, complaining about Gaza and all the stuff with children and mass shootings? That's, to me, the same argument that when people say Black Lives Matter, and then the retort is, well, all lives matter. No, that's not the point. This is not we're not keeping score. This is not one for you, one for me. I didn't agree with a chunk of what Charlie was saying. I did not agree with some of those things. There was other things I liked the way that he went out there and spoke and gave the microphone to these young people out there. Nobody should have to go out like that. 31 years old, a wife with a couple of kids. Like, we got to be better, man. And some people will try to use his words against be better than. If you're one of those people that didn't agree with what he said, don't sit out there like you're the judge and jury and executioner. Like to be better than. You can't tell me with what that guy did, you think it was okay that he got executed and assassinated on live, on a college campus. Sorry, man. I have no sympathy for those people that are okay with this. And what about more than just him? Okay, well, let's say you are one of those people. What about all the other people that were there? What about all the kids that saw that? What about all the people around that were trying to keep him safe? You don't think that's traumatic for them? Just weird, man. It's weird the certain moral high grounds we want to stand on because of our religious or political differences. And on top of that, the reason why today is a day that's so tough for me is I can't believe how many years have gone by, 24 years since 9/11. Now, for me, 9/11 hits way different than everybody else. Never forget is not just a hashtag for me. 9/11 is something that I'm physically incapable of doing. Why, you ask? Well, let's start off with this. On September 8th, 2001, as a member of the Central Islip High School band, we went into the city and we played for I believe it was the Labor Day parade. And with two friends of mine, Christina Schwenker and Joe Vecchione, we were there and we were standing at the base of the Twin Towers. And I looked up and I told my two friends, as we were 16 years old, let's not take this for granted. People spend money and travel from all around the world to come to this spot right here. Let's not take it for granted. 3 days later, we're actually in class because band was a class in Central Islip High School. And we hear an announcement on the loudspeaker from our principal, John Smith. And we just, we're playing, so we can't really hear. And in the last 5 or 6 seconds, it's like, may God have mercy on their soul. And we thought it was something like it was a person in the district that maybe passed away, like an old teacher or old principal or something like that. So we didn't really hear it. And then Mr. Angolia came in, the junior high music teacher, and said a plane just flew into the World Trade Center. So you don't really understand the gravity of that situation when it happened. You don't understand at that time, because it's just like, wait, what? So Mr. Ryan, our band director at the time, he's like, oh, wow, that's it's, awful. All right, let's get back to what we're doing. Because you're trying to all right, well, what can we do? You don't know at that time, right? You didn't see it. You don't know if it was an accident. We don't know what was going on. So we start playing, and 10, 15 seconds into it, he just goes, all right, everybody stop. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have made you do that. Go pack up your stuff and call who you have to call. And then it was mass hysteria. Christina and Joe coming up to me during band going, You just said that. You just said that a couple of days ago. We can't take it for granted. Then we hear another plane goes into the World Trade Center. And people start getting picked up left and right. My school of 1,600 kids in Central Islip, New York, by the end of the day, had less than 100. And I was one of the 100. My mom didn't drive at the time. My dad was at work. So I just had to sit there and wait. And as I'm going from class to class with maybe 2 people in each class. And I remember taking the bus home and getting off the bus. And it was just such an eerie feeling. Getting off the bus and then just kind of looking around. There's no planes. You didn't know if you were ever going to go to school again. We were just there 3 days before. And I just remember going home, and my mom's big concern was that we had 3 of our cousins, Jimmy, Brian, and Steven, there at the World Trade Center. And on that day, the cell service was terrible. So we couldn't get a hold of them. We didn't know if we lost them. That feeling, not knowing about family members and not knowing if you're ever going to see them or hear from them, excruciating. It's excruciating. Luckily, Jimmy, Brian, and Steven all got out. But unfortunately, Jimmy, our cousin Jimmy, he was one of those guys that you saw that had all the soot and all the ash on his face. He hasn't been the same. 24 years later, he hasn't been the same. He's had all kinds of illnesses and sicknesses and pneumonia, and more times than he can count. Doctor's visits, 24 years. He's had to deal with health issues because of what happened on that day. And I saw his wife, our cousin Barbara, on a couple of years ago for my mom's surprise birthday party. And I remember standing outside with her, and she goes, "Jay, our lives changed that day. Our lives have never been the same." The one thing that we learned on that day, and it sucks because the whole stuff with Charlie Kirk, it's not going to have that same type of impact, because with what happened with Charlie Kirk, there's still a political divide. There's still a political separation with this. The one thing that came out of 9/11 was that it didn't feel like it was an attack on Republicans or attack on Democrats. It felt like it was an attack on our nation as a whole. Nobody worried about what side of the aisle you were standing on that night when members of Congress were standing on the steps of the Capitol building singing "God Bless America." I remember taking a nap and waking up and thinking to myself, maybe we'll be okay. Maybe we'll be okay. My grandma would always say, you'll always remember where you were when big things happen in the country. You'll always remember where you were if, when JFK got assassinated. She said, this is your generations. You'll always remember where you were that day. And I know I will. I don't know if many of you know this, but after 9/11, I felt, and I don't know what this is. I don't know if it's an ego thing or what, but I always feel like if you have an opportunity to help, if you have an opportunity to give back, please do so. And that's why it's so important to me to work with the Titus O'Neills and the Ryan Callahans and the Denard Spans of the world. And when I was at iHeart, being part of the storm coverage, I don't know jack shit about storm cells or anything like that, but I want to help out. So after 9/11, I joined the local fire department. And I was a probie with that little orange badge thing on my helmet for the Central Islip Fire Department for about 9 months before I went away to college. And, I wasn't the first guy in there on fires. I was hitting the hydrant. I was doing real basic cleanup stuff. But I just felt like after the 343 people that lost their lives when it comes to first responders, there's got to be something that I could do. There's got to be a way for me to give back. So many people, Millers, the Murphys, there's just so many names like in our town in Central Islip that it's what they are. They live and breathe all the, everything with the fire department, the Correas, all these great people. And I just feel like I had to do my part. I had to do something. So I did that. And I just remember like after 9/11, the one thing that brought our country together was sports. I remember, as you know, I grew up a Yankee fan, but I remember that day when Mike Piazza and the Mets and the Braves, and Piazza hits the home run and the Mets ended up winning. And I just remember that being the weirdest day because that was the only day in my life I ever saw a Yankee fan cheer for the Mets. It was bigger than baseball. It was bigger than your rivalries. It was bigger than sports. It was a return to normalcy. And that is why I tell people all the time, if you're not into sports, you're missing out. You're missing out. Because it just has a way of like getting everything back to normal and kind of shaking us to our core that we can kind of figure everything out. I mean, we saw it with the pandemic after COVID, right? WWE never stopped. And we saw how like the Super Bowl and WrestleMania and how everything like baseball, football, hockey, basketball, how like just like that really helped us push on some semblance of normalcy and also kind of figure out like how we're going to operate in this new world. This is a day that's very special to me because once again, never forget is something I'm not physically capable of doing because there was such a profound impact on my life. So let's try to remember on the 24th anniversary of 9/11 and the day after just a public assassination for a young guy that was going to college campuses speaking to students, to try to be good to people, to be grateful for what we have, to try to continue to find the similarities that link us together rather than the differences that keep us apart. It's the great thing about going to games. When you're cheering on Baker Mayfield, Bucky Irving, Mike Evans, nobody says, but are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? What are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on that? We don't care. It's not about that. Time and place. It's tough to have conversations like this, and I try to be very upbeat on the show and optimistic, and we bring a lot of good vibes here. But a day like this, even it's just something about it. Just something about September 11th. There's something about 9/11. Even when I see that time on the clock, it's just so impactful. I never ever forget finding out that news and walking home and just crazy. You see more sports and you see WWE, and that was, I think, that was first. I want to say that was the first public assembly since 9/11. I want to say it was a SmackDown event, maybe in Houston. But then you saw Mark Messier wearing the fire department helmet on the ice at Madison Square Garden. You saw FDNY and NYPD hats. You saw George Bush throw out the first pitch, one of the best first pitches ever. That's why I love sports so much. Yes, it's fun. Yes, it's entertaining. Yes, I know way too much and spend way too much time on it. But sports helps us heal. Sports brings us together. And I know there are negative connotations when it comes to the sports world, and people can get crazy and that the word fan is short for fanatic. I understand that. But we have an opportunity in our lives to choose our point of view and to choose our perspective. And on days like today, instead of finger pointing, instead of making excuses, instead of saying, what about this? Well, what about this? Well, what about this? Humble yourself. Humble yourself. Be open-minded. Rise above. Bite your tongue. Take the high road. Why take the high road? Because we can. Be a better person. I mean, look at how many great sports stories that we've had here in the Tampa Bay area to make us feel good, to bring people together. Like Christopher Cole saying the Bulls are going to shock the world on Saturday. I mean, think about it, man. The quietest of USF fans over the years. Haven't really had a ton to cheer about outside of that nice run many, many moons ago where they went to number 2 in the country. Just a mere memory. But now we're on the precipice of something even bigger. You win this game this weekend, you might be looking at the number 1 team in the country. But regardless of all that, look at how many people from the green and golds have banded together, have been proud to throw up the horns. Good news of Rob Higgins now being the CEO of athletics. Look at the Buccaneers. It wasn't too long ago they were the biggest laughingstock in all of professional sports, the lowest winning percentage out of any team. And now look at them. People love the Bucs. People love Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Levante David, Tristan Wirfs, Antoine Winfield Jr. Sports makes you proud. Sports brings people together. And let's not forget, of course, the Tampa Bay Lightning. The model franchise for professional sports. They make you feel good about being a hockey fan, feel great about being a Lightning fan, feel fantastic about being here from the Tampa Bay area. Again, sports helps us heal. And let you be one of those people out there to make sure that sports is a way to bring people together, doing good things. Let's get to some of your comments. David Terry, with the one thing in common with all the killings, wanted to live in togetherness and love for one another. We don't have to agree on absolutely everything to be friends. Louis, hoping everybody is doing well out there. Dolan will never forget September 11th, and rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. What else we got here? Come on. Greg DeCruz, never forget 9/11. Nathan Elliott, hello, Tampa Bay. Hello, Nathan. Bart Hill, what's up, Jaybird? A sad day on two fronts, to say the least. Greg DeCruz, I remember listening to 620 when Chris Thomas was on the air during 9/11. I heard a lot about that over the years. Of course, you know, when 9/11 pops up every year, that's one of the big topics is conversation on 95.3 WDAE and AM 620. I'm actually going to be on WDAE tomorrow. Check that out with Pat and Aaron tomorrow at 8 a.m. So make sure you tune in. It should be fun for their Football Friday and doing some pick'em with the boys. Nathan, hello to all the J Recher Watcher peeps. Greg, we all have forgotten the lost art of listening without judgment or interruption. It's why free speech is so important. Bart Hill, again, I remember listening to Chris Thomas on 9/11 also. He was a voice of reason at a moment of rage and sadness. Dolan, the whole world changed that day. Hammer, our guy, they say that the site is worse than Chernobyl due to radiation. Sad day. David Terry will never forget that day. Nathan Elliott, crew member with the Bucs for more than a decade in politics and never brought up at Ray J. Go Bucs, the Aints and wide right Falcons suck. Louis, our pal, today feels very different. Hug your family, hug your kids. What I saw yesterday was heartbreaking. This stuff has to stop. It's okay to have a difference in opinion. Imagine if our country all lived like we were cheering for the same team. You got that right. Christopher Cole, the world has changed again after yesterday. And Lady Evil, that was very deep. Thank you. You were right. You would have become a great preacher. Thank you very much, Lady Evil. And thank you so much for the super chat, $5. Guys, if you can contribute like Lady Evil, one of our favorite guests here on one of our favorite viewers, Lady Evil, please do so. $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, whatever you guys can do. I really do appreciate it. It's the only way we're going to keep this going is by our super chats, you guys buying t-shirts, and of course, our big sponsor right here, Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC. Residential commercial needs, 813-244-0956. Scan that QR code right there. We just had somebody yesterday that was watching. I think it was Evolve that was watching and said, hey, I need some work done. I said, stop right now. Go call Russ. And yeah, man, step in the right direction, which is good. You want to be able to help Russ out. I mean, and our friends at Honest Hammer, being so kind and generous to be able to sponsor our show, but we want there to be a return on investment, right? Not many people talk about that when they're endorsing a product and they're in partnership like myself. We have to make sure that, you know, we help him. We help him. He's a small business, a growing business. I don't even know if it ain't small anymore, Hammer. It's a growing business here in the Tampa Bay area. Big time Braves fan, USF alum. He loves Tampa Bay sports and just a great, great human being. Surround yourself with more and more people like Russ and our family over at Honest Hammer Custom Builders. Again, all your residential and commercial needs, 813-244-0956. Tell them that you heard it right here on the J Recher podcast and get you a discount. Only politics that are ever mentioned in Recher in regards to the political favoritism of the refs and how the Kansas City Chiefs get all the calls. I want to read one more thing. This is from my Aunt Arlene. So my Aunt Arlene is my grandma's sister-in-law. And my Aunt Arlene is my cousin Jimmy's mom. And my Aunt Arlene's not my grandma. She's my great aunt. But she always treats us like we're her grandchildren. Aunt Arlene sent this out to everybody because she's like one of those strong matriarchs. She's still funny as hell, but she just always knows what to say. It's been 24 years since that unbelievable day, but still feels like only yesterday and brings back the fear of waiting to find out if my family survived and thanking God that they went home to their families. I wish we could recapture the days that followed of togetherness and love of country, which sadly today our country is so very far from. But I am thankful for their survival and for their families. God bless you and save America. Well said, Aunt Arlene. Well said. Shout out to our guy Louie with a super chat of $5. Louie, you're the best, buddy. Thank you. Awesome. Well said intro for the show. Love the show, Jay. Keep doing it. Can't wait for the t-shirts, baby. It's gonna be awesome, man. It's gonna be awesome. Greg, any chance doing a retro party / get together when I visit in December, maybe at a local bar or Dignitary Cafe? Yeah, maybe we can do that. Yeah, the Dignitary Cafe, Greg. That'd be the way to go. We'll figure something out. We can do something like that. Maybe we can do a kind of a live like a live J Recher podcast from the Dignitary Cafe. I'll ask Ian and Tom Ponzo and see if we can do that. That'd be great. We got to get Benny. We got to get Dave Terry. We got to get Dolan. We got to get Lady Evil. We got to get Louie, Chris Cole, Nate Elliott. Come on. We got to get Bart Hill. Everybody's got to stop by, man. We got to do that. That would be freaking amazing. I love the idea. Love the idea all the way around. Great show today. We've got a great show tomorrow, too. Collin Sherwin's going to join us here momentarily. We also have Rob Maaddi joining us at 1 p.m. And then later on, well, not later on, but tomorrow, Trevor Sikkim is going to be joining us on the show from Pro Football Focus. Remember him from his days at Pewter Report and the Draft Network. That guy is the man. So we are so happy that he's going to be able to join us tomorrow at, I said 1 o'clock, it was 12:30. Yeah, tomorrow we'll go over the teams that are 1-0 that I think will lose in week 2 and teams that are 0-1 that I think will win in week 2 as well. More baseball this weekend. So I'm going to be on the field watching the USF game, trying to pay attention. And thank God the Bucs have a Monday night affair. If you want to come watch the game with us, you can do so at the Dignitary Cafe, 4817 Southwest Shore Boulevard. All right, so I think the way that I have put his little tagline on the bottom just makes way too much sense. Collin Sherwin, he knows USF stuff. I didn't. I sometimes I get, and you'll notice with Rob Maaddi at 1 o'clock, it's very, Associated Press, NFL senior writer. But I think for a guy like Collin, he knows USF stuff, and he's one of those guys that over the years, if somebody has an opinion on something South Florida, Collin is right there. He joins us. What's going on, buddy? How are you? Unmute yourself. We need you.
That's probably better. Jay, did I hear you say you're going to be down in Miami this weekend?
No, I wish. I'm going to be in Inverness, freaking Florida up there. Inverness used to have a travel base. When I coached 20 years ago, Inverness's travel baseball team was the Crackers. And I was like, your name's the Inverness Crackers? We're allowed to say that? They're going, yeah, it's just Crackers right here. And I was like, oh my God, I am not in New York anymore. Unbelievable. So, yeah, I know you're like the 10th person. Like, you're going to Miami. I was in West Palm last week watching the game. No. If it was just it's so crazy because you know what would have happened is if the game was in Inverness, I probably would have went to Gainesville. And if the game was in, you know what I mean? Like, I would have went if it would have worked out. But you know what? Everything happens for a reason. Thank you so much for joining us, buddy. Man, how nice is it to be able to talk about USF in a way where it's of reverence and positivity and optimism? Because, man, I said this with Sam Barrington earlier this week. Dude, we've been painting lipsticks on pigs for the last decade or so. I mean, Collin, it's really cool to be able to see where they're at right now.
Decade? Man, did we forget about, Skip? I mean, Skip was more than a decade ago now. Yeah, man, it's just been so. I did a 35-minute rant cast. Normally, I don't do these things by myself, but I did like a full Colin Cowherd for like 35 minutes, just because I was so excited, and two, it was so nice to be able to say nice things about this school. I really, and it starts at the top. Honestly, it starts with a board of trustees that's really invested in athletics, that really cares, that thinks the front porch of the university is something that matters and is willing to invest. And quite frankly, they know they're playing catch up at this point. We sort of let this thing, we let the Maserati sit outside on the lawn and it ended up on blocks. And, they got to go get this thing and, put in the garage and fixed. And that's exactly what they're doing. And you can see it in not just the stadium coming online and the hiring of Rob Higgins, but the quality of the football facility, the amount of money that's been invested in this program in terms of NIL compared to peer schools. They're doing the work. They're behind, but they're making the investment now. And I think that's why the future is so bright.
I love when we were at the Brian Hodgson press conference and Will Weatherford was just talking about so many different things about like the athletics program. And no, it's not just part of our universe. Like they're leading from the front. Like they want to make sure that everybody knows, like, this isn't just something like, oh yeah, here's our athletic program. They're like, no, this is a big part of everything. And listen, and I want to ask you about the legacy of Michael Kelley in a bit, but one thing that MK was, and I talked to him about this, he goes, Jay, we got to get on board with this NIL thing. And this is before anybody knew what NIL stood for. He goes, this is where we're going when it comes to college athletics. That was before transfer portal, before NIL was, at the top of everybody's screen. And I was like, oh, okay. That's what USF needed to do, as in your words, to catch up. What did you think about the initial news of Rob Higgins? Because I know, talking to Nathan Bond, our buddy, and just talking to a bunch of different people, there was a little bit of a concern of, we got to go outside. We got to find somebody outside of the walls of South Florida and to make sure that they understand. Like, we need somebody with relationships. Is this just the best of both worlds then, Collin? Is this a guy that knows Tampa, has those USF roots, but also understands, because of his work as the executive director of the Tampa Bay Sports Commission, what it's like to raise funds and what it's like to kind of highlight our area, which will help in turn USF, not just, I think, with the athletic, I just think as a whole, as a university.
You know what? This is the funniest thing. Obviously, Rob was probably one of the first people USF talked to when the job came open again. He's a community leader. He cares about the place, blah, 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 blah. And then he ended up being the last guy they talked to. And that's because they did a full search. Let me tell you, this was a search process. They paid an outside search firm. They did, they took in incoming. I had people calling me, asking them to get them in the mix. Hey, hey, you want to let your little search firm know over there that I wouldn't hate taking this job. That I had multiple phone calls on that front. I talked to a lot of people. They did a full search, and then they came back and said, we got the perfect guy sitting right here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is not only a credit to USF for doing the work and doing the vetting and doing everything like that, but I mean, it's a credit to Rob for what he's done for this community for over almost 25 years at this point. I've always heard Rob say that, this is his dream job, that what he's currently doing right now, bringing Super Bowls and Final Fours and everything else to this town. This has been his dream job. But I think that there might only be one job he would leave the one he has for. Right. And this is it. And so, I'm super excited. Rob, and the thing is that look, I've lived here almost 30 years. I'm a Tampa guy through and through. This is my home, 813 forever, all that stuff. But I'll never be a native. You know what I mean? Right. And there's a difference. And you and I both coming from somewhere else to here. There is a difference. Those second, third, fifth generation Tampanians, they all know each other. They've all been together. And I'm fortunate enough to know a lot of them, to be very, very close to a lot of them. But it's a different thing. And when you're getting a guy, Jesuit high school grad, class of 97, 96, somewhere in there probably. And you're getting a guy like that who knows everybody in this space already. He doesn't, it's not like one of these deals where if we hire the number 2 guy at Tennessee, or we hire, the top guy at Montana, you know what I mean? Where we go, hey, here's your phone list. Okay. Right. You should probably go out and have dinner with these people as quickly as possible, because Rob's already got them once, they've been in his phone for decades. So that is why I think this is just a great way for us to hit the ground running, and especially capitalize on the momentum that we've seen on the field this season. And they're doing more than pushing dirt around out there at the stadium now. I mean, it's unbelievable. It took almost 20 years to get this thing right. And because after that 2007 season that everybody remembers, we weren't prepared and we weren't ready. And now they are.
You got that right, buddy. And you're right. Like the perfect hire, Rob Higgins. Like it just satisfies so many different things. And it's funny when you say that, like not having to reach out for people. It's like, can you imagine a new guy coming in? Well, you're gonna have to meet this guy, Derek Brooks, and you're gonna have to meet all these other dignitaries around town. You should probably meet Mayor Jane Castor. You should be right. You should probably meet all of the teams in town. Like Rob knows everybody. He's got everybody from John Cooper to Baker Mayfield. Like he's fine. Like you're right. He's already so far ahead of an outsider where an outsider would be. And it's one thing, like, and I'm not taking anything away from USF guys, but like Rob Higgins is a USF guy, but he's also a Tampa guy, like you just alluded to. So he's been in on the pro side a little bit more. And we know sometimes there could be a little bit of a, I don't want to say disconnect, but just it's a different world, the pro side and the collegiate side. Go ahead, you're good. Different world because of the pro side and the collegiate side. So for a guy like Rob Higgins to be able to come in and already have those relationships with all the TV guys. He has all the relationships with the radio guys and all the different, just organizations. And it's just nothing that Rob is going to see is going to surprise him. He doesn't have to really introduce himself to anybody, which is kind of wild. Everybody's just going to be happy. I want to ask you about the guy outgoing. Yeah, go ahead.
Let me follow up. I have talked to multiple 7-figure donors to the university. A million years ago, I worked in development, and I've just had those relationships and friendships, since I worked there. And every single person that I have talked to that has donated over $1 million to USF is beyond excited. That should tell you something. You know what I mean? Like that's, I don't talk to all of them, but I've talked to multiple, which is more than 2. And every single one of them thought this was the perfect hire. I think that's all I can. I mean,
that's all I can say. What more can you say? Yeah. So your thoughts on the legacy of Michael Kelly? Because MK and I got along really well. I think his heart was in the right place. He's another guy where, like, I think he would have stayed. I think he would have stayed here. But you're going to Navy. You're going to the Naval Academy. It's probably going to be your last job. His dad was there, right? Like, so it's just like you can't fault him. I know there's people out there that were saying, "Oh, it's just USF will always be a stepping stone job," and I'm just like, maybe you could say that about other people, but for this scenario, like that's home for him, right? That's home. He likes that area. And now you have a guy in Rob Higgins that he's not going to be looking at it like a stepping stone thing. Like, hopefully for him, this is his last job. But just kind of the overall sentiment, because I saw some of the discourse online today about Michael Kelly and, his, discussions about on-campus stadiums. You're a guy that's been covering just this whole program, this whole athletic program for a long time. How can you sum up Michael Kelly's time with South Florida?
I think what he inherited was one of the worst situations in all of FBS.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was, externally, internally, everything that could possibly go right in an administration that wasn't making the investments that were possible. He had staff turning over left and right because they were miserable in their positions. He had, people were under budgeted, under resourced, undervalued, not just for their paychecks, but in their opinions and how to get things better. It was really bad. And it sounds crazy to say, but like he stabilized the patient. And I think that he got USF back to the point where making a high, like you're seeing the results of MK's leadership on the field now in his high route. Now, I think he, if MK had it to do over again, I don't know if Jeff Scott would have been his first major hire. But did he fix that. And he hired, two fantastic basketball coaches and a football coach that has now really gotten us ready to take things into the future. And I have such respect for MK. We didn't quite cross over. I think like his last day at USF was like my first day at USF, but I knew him when I was a student a million years ago. And then he goes on and runs Super Bowls and works for the ACC and does all of this stuff and comes back, and all of that organizational leadership, all of that, process and dealing with bureaucracy and everything like that. And plus he just loved the place and he's a good person. Yeah. And I think that there were some folks that came through USF who didn't have the institution's best interests at heart. And you can never, ever question that with Michael Kelly. And that's why Navy got a great one. And I'm very excited for him. I'm excited for his family. But he did a fantastic job here and he set the stage. Now that base is laid, that foundation is laid, the investment is there, people are on board as of USF as actually being the front porch of the university and not just giving lip service to it. I think Rob's getting ready to, take this thing to the next level, make it go worldwide.
No doubt about it. Adam Cartwright brings up a good point. MK hired a great baseball coach too, and I love Mitch Hannes, man. He is an old school. I talked about him a lot being back on the baseball fields now. And I don't know if I've ever told anybody this, especially not on the podcast, and I'm glad I can share it because you're here. I was very in tune with the baseball job because of, my ties to Joe Urso and baseball in the community. And I just wanted to make sure that Michael Kelly understood how important this next hire was going to be because of this is a baseball town, regardless of what the relationship is with the Rays. Like, don't tell me that this isn't a baseball town. I've seen it 20 years ago and I see it again. Thousands of people on baseball fields at this time of year. And I reached out to USF. I reached out to some of the higher ups and I said, can I just please talk to Michael Kelly? I'd like to talk to him about the job, not me having it, but just talking to him about it. And I'm like, Collin, you go pound sand or ignore it or anything. And they were like, all right, well, we'll see what we can get back to you. Michael Kelly calls me from, I think, London at 10:30 on Friday morning. And we spoke for like 25 minutes. And I gave him everything. And he's like, Jay, and I'm like, you don't owe me this phone call at all. And he goes, Jay, you are so passionate about USF. You didn't even go to USF. And every single time I cover USF, I didn't go there, Collin. So for me, I just do it because I live here and I love USF and they've treated me well. And every single time that I've traveled to Clearwater, I traveled to Tuscaloosa, on my own dime, like I do it because I think it's the right thing. If I'm a sports media member, I want to be able to give insight to the people that follow and listen to me as a person that's willing to put their money where their mouth is, literally. And Michael Kelly realized that, understood that. He would come up to me, Jay, thank you so much for your support and coverage of the Bulls. He didn't just say it just to say shit. Like he said it because he meant it. Like you said, he's a good guy. So I'm with you. He laid the foundation. And I think Rob Higgins is going to take it to the next level. Now we're looking at the next level for our football team. 2-0 after these big victories. Where are you at now with this game against Miami? Because Of course, there's people around the country just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Yeah, those other two teams weren't as good as we thought they were. And maybe they'll say it again if USF ends up beating Miami. But where are you right now? What are some of the things you're looking at this weekend against the Hurricanes to possibly have the Bulls at 3-0? And I mean, I don't see them being lower than 2 or 3 if they win this game.
Yeah, I don't think you can make. I think you can still rank Ohio State 1 because they beat Texas pretty handily. I mean, it was only a 1-score game, but it was more than that. I think you can even if they were at home, I think you still got to rank Ohio State number 1. But I can't see a scenario where if they go on the road and beat number 5 after having beaten number 13, after having beaten number 25, all on 1 at home, 2 on the road. I don't see how do you put them less than 2, and then the traumas of every USF fan of being number 2 will just fly forward, but that's okay. I'll take that trauma. That's good trauma to have.
It is.
I think, look, it was 16.5, kicked up to 17.5 apparently in the last couple of days or last day or so. Here's the thing. I thought USF's game plan at Gainesville was perfect for a team that was number 2 in plays per minute with the ball last year, only behind North Texas. They were able to maintain and control the clock. And that is a question, actually, that I asked Alex Gullish. I went up to Media Days. We did a nice 45-minute interview with him in Charlotte for AAC Media Days. And I talked about that. I was like, do you have the ability to slow this thing down when you need to against better opponents? The Alabama game last year, they just sort of ran out of gas in the fourth quarter. And I thought, when you're playing teams like Florida and Miami, do you have it? And the answer is 100%. He told me, yeah, we got this. And yes, he does, because I thought the way that they managed that game, first of all, Billy Napier, you need to take some lessons from the guy on the opposite sideline, because you got your ass kicked. Okay. And from a game management, format, it was not close. And I think that they showed that they have multiple ways to win, but I do think the basic general game plan is going to be a lot of the same. Our Seth Varnador, and this isn't open yet, this will be public tomorrow for everybody else, but he's already done this for our patrons at the Bay Area Examiner.com. Plug. But we do a plug Bay Area Examiner.com. Should have worn the hat. Don't know why I'm wearing a Logan Paul hat. Bad job by me. But Seth did a breakdown of that already. And one of the things that he showed in that breakdown is Yosef did a lot of screens on first down. And that really seemed to keep Florida off balance. That kind of wrinkle, that kind of rub is going to be, they're going to come up with something else for Miami. It won't be necessarily screens on first down. It'll be something else. It might be, if they're going to especially, come in from one side, it might be more throwbacks. It might be more reverses. We didn't see anything where getting the speed going one way to the other, using Miami's defensive speed against them. Things like that. They're going to put some kind of wrinkle in there to throw Miami off. The question is can you hang around until like the fourth quarter? And then if it's in the fourth quarter, Mario is going to do something stupid, because we have just seen this. He's, right. I am as you are aware, I'm a wagering enthusiast. I've been covering this from a sports betting perspective for a while, and I've made a hell of a lot of money betting against Mario Cristobal in the second half. And I think that is kind of what USF path is. Hang around, wait for them to do something stupid. The other thing they're going to need, probably just because Miami's there is a talent gap there, is Carson Beck makes mistakes. He's an outstanding quarterback, but he's got a high turnover rate. He throws picks. He forces some balls sometimes that he shouldn't. That was at Georgia. Did a little bit against Notre Dame too. Not too bad, but a little bit. They're going to need Carson Beck to make a couple mistakes too. But that's the path. I think that's probably the way forward. I think 17.5 is too high. So I kind of like USF to cover. Win outright would be difficult.
Yeah,
they're going to need help. They're going to need a little help.
Yeah, they do. And you're right. I think one thing that we've been able to see is that they've made the big plays, right? You can't drop those passes. And I always go back to the 2 deep bombs in Tuscaloosa. Like, you got to hit on those, right? You hit on the fake punt pass, right?
They were there. They were both
They were there. They were
wide open.
Yeah, it's crazy. But then you've seen it this year, right? The fake punt completion for the touchdown. You see the Chenault interception. You see the big bomb again to Singleton. So, like, you have to hit on those in order for you to win games like this, where maybe you're not having the talent advantage on paper. Like you got a double screen for 80 yards, like it can't get called back, right? Isaac, when he had that run at the end of the game down the right sideline there. I mean, that Vaughn right there, he's one of the biggest players. I think he's that guy going forward. And I want to ask you this, your opinion, because I mentioned this yesterday. I think USF has gone with this like 3-back system and like, hey, we'll just put anybody in there. And I think Vaughn's like more talented than the rest of the guys. No disrespect to him, but I think there's like run it how the Detroit Lions did with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, right? If you're going to have Norton be maybe a little bit more of your thumper, and then Vaughn is your guy that's a little bit more of a maybe they have to go that way, right? Or do it like the Bucs, Ever and Rashad, instead of saying we have 3 backs like we've seen the last couple of years where Teron Keith and Naquan, right? They're pretty much doing the same thing. You know what I mean? So it's just like go out there and play a little bit of a different game, a little bit of thunder, a little bit of lightning. I have so much confidence in Alex Golesh and his game plan, which is, I don't know if something we've been able to say in probably since Willie Taggart was here.
Yeah, game plan wise, that was as good a game. We were talking about like what are the best like game plans that I've ever seen. I think the number one is always going to be the Louisville game in 2005, which was sort of like Rod Smith's opus. Amari Jackson threw for a touchdown, ran for a touchdown, and rushed for a touchdown on a reverse. And that was always to me like that was the most. And we blew them off. We blew them off the field. And I believe that was our first Big East game as well. That's always been like the standard of like, oh my God, we just game plan for this team and we got them. I would say that overall, though, the plans that Golesh has put together have been outstanding week to week. These both bowl games. Some of the other bigger games. I think this is a staff that really puts their time and thought and effort into that kind of thing. You talk about like a multi-back system. The thing that Alvin Isaac gives you with some speed in the back is that if you're running some sort of like mesh concept or not the passing mesh concept, but where you're at the mesh point in the backfield, you've got if you've got Isaac going this way and Brown holding the ball here, you got to cover both because that's going to stretch a defense horizontally as much as anybody. And I think he's also got the ability to get in space and make people miss. He's got that slippery thing. What we saw it's the complete opposite of what we saw from Florida last week, where he's just bowling over people. That guy's an athlete, man.
He's a beast, dude.
He's so good. You see the missed tackles and you just sort of go, okay, you know what? I get it. Yeah, got a hand on him, but he couldn't get it down. All right. You're doing your best you can out there.
Right.
I think for USF, that the big thing is going to be, it seems like the way that they're structuring it early is that Singleton is the guy that they want to get, and Ruben as well, like the guys that they want to get more involved in, like the comebacks, the hooks stuff, you know what I mean? Shorter intermediate pattern stuff. Right. And then Nimrod's the guy they're trying to hit deep. They got to hit a cup. They're going to have to hit one with Nimrod. And Singleton did make the play last week to score the touchdown down the right side where he made a guy out in space, made a guy miss and go. But it seems like when they see a lot of, either empty or single high coverage, that they're trying to hit Nimrod deep over the middle. And they're probably going to need to hit one of those, maybe 2. And so I think that's probably got to be the way. And then defensively, this front 7, man, they just hit people. They just hit them so hard. The physicality of this front 7 has been really the difference. Can they handle it against a Miami offensive line? That's probably one of the best 5 offensive lines in the country.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Here's your game right there. Yeah.
There you go. In a nutshell, he breaks it all down for you. Bay Area Examiner, always doing a great job over there. Nathan, Seth, Collin. Who else? Who am I forgetting? Stieg.
Oh, Anthony Vito, Robert Stieg.
You guys are like, you guys are so fluid, right? I don't know who's involved, who's not involved. Nathan leaves.
I got to tell you, I'm an owner, because I start when we were back, it was still called Voodoo 5, and then Vox Media made it changes to the Daily Stampede, and then we had we left for a year, and when we went back to Vox because we left 2 years, and they were like cover recruiting. We're like, we hate recruiting, so then we shifted back. Now we do cover recruiting in a much better way, and then we've done all of this different stuff, but with all these different formats. But for these guys, we all went in as partners. I am the emeritus. They call me an off the bench when things are very good or very bad, or they need information or whatever. But these guys run this thing, and they've done a fantastic job. And to become a resource for the university, for the diest of diehard fans, is something I'm really proud of. We didn't know what shape this thing was going to take when we took it on ourselves, and it's just continued to grow. The fan support has been fantastic, and get in our Discord because it's hilarious. Like, we get some really funny people in there, and also come get my betting picks because I had last week 4 and 5 last week. 3 of the worst beats I've ever seen, including Lane Kiffin personally apologizing to me for one of them. But 9-2-1 first week, and then we've got 5 on the board for this week already. So get in there.
There you go, man. Collin, Sherwin, our friends at Bay Area Examiner, get the picks. Check them out. Let them know where they can find you, buddy.
BayAreaExaminer.com. Check us out on Substack. Find us on Twitter. I believe we are at Bay Area Examiner.
They're all over. They're all over the place, man.
All over the dang place.
I love it. I love chatting with all of you guys, man. The Bay Area Examiner checking in.
Hey, man, I got a question for you. You're a UT guy plugged into that. Well, not UT guy, but like, you're plugged into that program. You know what's going on. Are they going D1? I've heard this rumor now for 2 years. It's not happening. So it's out. Okay.
I talked to both sides. So like, I've heard, now I've gathered all the information, right? And one of the discussions that I had with a guy a couple weeks ago, he goes, I'm the only strength guy for all of our programs. We need to hire 19 strength guys. So as much like that's just one, right? No, because you have service staff and people underneath. He's just saying an example. He was probably being hyperbolic a little bit more, but even just hiring that aspect of it, right? Here's another thing. They don't do online classes at UT.
So interesting. I talked to Casey Keeler about this, who is now the head coach at Temple, came from Sam Houston State, went back to Temple. We were talking about his alma mater, Delaware, because he was a UD grad. He's like, I love Delaware. I want that program to do well. I wish they had online classes. He's like, that's going to be really a challenge for them to get better if you don't have online. Like, that is huge. You're absolutely right. It's so big now, and a lot of our kids, like, they're doing, at USF. I talked to a couple of our players earlier this season. They're mostly online. They're still going to a couple classes, but like, it's mostly online for your football team now.
And some of the kids, that's all they do, and that's hard. I know a couple of kids that were D1 that went D2 to UT, and they're like, what do you mean? They were like, you have to go to class. And it's something that even the baseball team, they have to literally build their practice schedule around. And they try to group up the classes together. Like, all right, these are the guys that have practice from, or school from 8 to 11. And then their practice has to get pushed back. Like, you're not doing that at D1, man. They're adjusting to you, not the other way around. So I don't see it happening. It doesn't make sense. I talked to an old UT top tier volleyball player, and she's like, Jay, why? We do so good. It doesn't really mean anything. And you go to UT to win championships. That's it. Like, you go to win championships. So having them go D1, what does that help you? It really doesn't. Like, what? You're going to go and now you're going to be middle of the pack somewhere? Like, as much as you may have resources now, you have resources for a D2 school. You don't have the same kind of resource for a D1 school. Then you'd have to expand all your athletics. And that's, to me, you are the biggest fish in the littlest pond. You have the best baseball team. You have one of the top 5 softball teams. Your soccer teams are good. Your lacrosse teams. You got beach volleyball, basketball.
I'm a volleyball. I went to the damn national championship they won on their home floor.
Amazing.
I mean, I'm a big volleyball guy. So like, I would selfishly, as somebody who lives much closer to UT than they do to USF, I would be a season ticket holder tomorrow. I think it would be so fun to have another D1 program in this market. But like, if I also understand the downside of it as well. I do wish that hopefully in this new way that we're formatting college sports, that maybe UT volleyball, you could pick, in lacrosse, it doesn't matter if you're D1 you can pick your up. I would love to see like UT volleyball and baseball play D1. If there's you don't have to do it full program wide, but just like you do with men's volleyball on the West Coast and things like that, where you pick a couple sports and play up. Johns Hopkins is a D3 school that plays in like D1 Final Fours for lacrosse all the time.
I love that. We're gonna definitely table this discussion, and we'll come back to
let's do it.
Because now I'm gonna throw that into the atmosphere and see how that works. Collin, Sherwin, and of course our friends at Bay Area Examiner. Appreciate your time, brother. We'll talk soon.
All right, brother. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Man, great conversation as always with Collin. There's not many more people that are plugged in when it comes to USF, and I like the curveball with the UT question. That's a good point. It's a good point. What if we just get baseball? I'm going to ask Joe and see what he has to say about that. Just get baseball, right? Imagine that. Imagine if baseball is just like, we're going to go to the American. You know what? We're going to go to the Conference USA or especially now the way it is, where I know back in the day, one of the big draws for UT was, hey, come play for us. You're going to play for a national championship. You don't have to sit out a year. But now with the transfer portal, it's a complete different ball game. But they just the ball game might be different, but UT just keeps winning and winning and winning some more. Speaking of winning, we're winning because this guy's on our show, our pal Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. He's their senior NFL writer. What's going on, brother? How are you?
What's up, Jay? How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for making some time for me today there at One Buccaneer Place at the Advent Health Training Center. Some big news there. There you go. There you go, buddy. I've been there way too many times. I think about that place in my sleep. Tristan Wirfs and Chris Godwin back on the field today for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I know they're not going to be back this week. I know they got some time to go, but man, what a good sign for Buccaneer fans everywhere to see those two guys back there practicing with their club.
Jay, 100%. Obviously, Tristan Wirfs is an all-pro left tackle, the best at the position in the NFL, and you know how important he is to the passing game and how important he is to the Buccaneers' ability to run the football and run the football effectively. So the sooner that he can get back out there and be healthy and be able to continue to do what he's done in the NFL, I think is going to be great news for the Buccaneers. And then when you look at Chris Godwin, isn't it crazy the amount of talent this team has at wide receiver? Then the money that they paid Chris Godwin, and he's almost at this point like a luxury item. Because you think about Mike Evans being a future Hall of Famer who this year's going for his 12th straight season with 1,000 yards. And we saw he hasn't lost anything. Mike Evans is out there, and he's tremendous. First week of the season against Atlanta, and he looked great. And he's still drawing the double teams, and he's still able to be the focal point for defensive coordinators. And then you've got Emeka Egbuka, who steps right in, and oh, by the way, 2 touchdowns in his first game. And now Chris Godwin could be coming back to this offense. And then at some point, Jalen McMillan. And then obviously you also have Sterling Shepard and what he could do as a veteran out there. It's going to be incredibly such a boost, such an upgrade for the Bucs when they're able to get Chris out there. And I don't know how Baker's going to distribute the football, man. It's going to be it's going to be tough to. And the great part about this Buccaneers team is you've got a lot of guys who are they're not demanding they want the ball. They want to be the guy, but they're not demanding the football. They're not going in there and pouting about how many touches they have. They want to win, and they've got the everybody eats mentality. That's what people call it in the NFL now. And 1 week it'll be Mike Evans with 8 catches. 1 week it'll be Mech. 1 week it could be Chris Godwin. Who knows? As long as they get the W. But it's going to be a challenge for Josh Broussard and Baker Mayfield to get the ball to everybody. And I'm looking forward to seeing that happen.
No Luke Gedeke at practice today, I saw. So Charlie Heck looked like he was working out there with the right tackle. I mean, you're a guy that's been following the sport for a long time. When you heard that the Buccaneers are just going to – it almost was like how we used to pick the baseball starting lineup back in the day as kids, put everybody's name in a hat and you pick it up. Oh, Graham Barton, you're going to play left tackle. Bredesen, why don't you go play center? What were your thoughts on that? And does it seem like there's any concern that Luke Gedeke will not be in there for week 2 against the Texans as far as we know?
Yeah, that certainly is a concern if Luke Gedeke isn't out there, because you're going up against Will Anderson Jr., who is a Pro Bowl caliber player, edge rusher, and a guy who has had a ton of success in the NFL in just 2 seasons. So this is with Wirfs out, if you're losing Luke Gedeke as well, it's going to be a really difficult time trying to keep the pressure off of Baker Mayfield. And when you refer to what they did with the offensive line, I think that told you, Jay, last week, their thoughts on or their confidence level in Charlie Heck when he's been out there practicing at the position all throughout training camp in the preseason and kind of behind the scenes without really much media fanfare. They're working out Graham Barton at left tackle, and they're shuffling the offensive line. They don't seem to have that much confidence in Charlie as that swing tackle, and now to force him to go into the lineup. I don't like this spot for the Bucs on Monday night against Houston for a lot of reasons, and this being now just in addition to it, another focal point, the banged up offensive line, and you've got a Houston Texans team that lost in LA, two-time defending AFC South champions. Certainly don't want to go 0-2 to start the season. A defensive coordinator, well, a head coach now in D'Amico Ryans, defensive-minded head coach who's always brought the toughness, the tenacity to his teams, and that's how they play on defense. They made life difficult last week for Matthew Stafford and the Rams, and it's a Monday night road game. They still haven't played a home game yet. I really don't like this spot for Tampa. But that said, we've seen them in difficult predicaments before almost pull out. Like you go back to the Monday night last year when they didn't have their top three receivers and should have beat the Kansas City Chiefs on the road.
Right. Yeah, it's a great point. And I remember the game against Detroit where they ended up winning that game, but Aiden Hutchinson had like 3 sacks at one game. It was pretty wild. I know how long you've been following the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think they are still number 1 in the NFC until they get knocked off. It's never easy going against the Cowboys. If you watch the NFC East, throw the records out. It really doesn't matter because it gets just wonky. But I got to ask you, like, who do you have as that second and third team behind Philly? Because I'm one of the guys that I don't want to say down on Detroit. I just think it's going to be a lot. Losing your center and Frank Ragnow, losing both of your coordinators. You saw that they didn't have a really great week 1 performance against the Green Bay Packers. Everybody's high on Green Bay because of the acquisition of Micah Parsons. I like Minnesota. I love Kevin O'Connell. But where do you see like those teams after Philly? Where do the Bucs kind of fit in when it comes to the hierarchy in the NFC, you think?
Jay, I think tonight we'll get a real good idea of who that second team might be right after Philly, because you got the Packers playing at home against the Washington Commanders. The Commanders went to the NFC title game last year. A little bit of a surprise being able to get there last year, maybe ahead of schedule, certainly first year with Dan Quinn, first year with Jaden Daniels. But I think that this team has that ability in the Washington Commanders to be able to continue to show that improvement and compete with the Eagles. If they could go on the road and beat Micah Parsons and the Green Bay Packers, that's a big step forward. The Packers certainly went from being a playoff caliber team to a Super Bowl contender with the addition of Micah. I'm not ready to write off the Detroit Lions. They look like they got to get in sync, and losing an offensive coordinator, losing a defensive coordinator is something that's difficult to overcome. Saw the Eagles have to do that a couple of years ago after they went to the Super Bowl, lost both of their OC and their DC. They started 10-1 and then had a monumental collapse. So I certainly would put the Lions in there. The Vikings, to me, come back on Monday night in Chicago, the way J.J. McCarthy played like a guy who's bitter. He started, it's like he matured 6 seasons over the course of that game. He's a rookie making his NFL. Well, he's not a rookie. He's a second-year player making his NFL debut because he sat out last season. Right. And he looked like it in the first quarter and in the second and when he throws the pick. And then all of a sudden he matures into a guy who can lead a comeback like that. Kevin O'Connell is a tremendous head coach in the NFL. He's shown it, so I think they're there. But on to the Buccaneers. This is a team that's had Philly's number. This is a team that fans in Philly would have told you last year if they wanted to avoid someone in the playoffs, it would be Todd Bowles and the Buccaneers. And I think the same stands true this year. And we'll get to see in a few weeks on September 28th when the Bucs face the Eagles again in Tampa, again in September, where they stand against each other. So I think that for all of the talk about the upper tier teams being Philly, Washington, Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota, the Bucs kind of fly under the radar, and I think they're fine with that because they flew under the radar in the NFC South for 2 years. I believe somebody a couple of years ago picked them to win, like a prominent. I don't remember who it was. Some prominent national personality had them winning like 2 games, and they won the division. And then
Right.
last year they win 10 games. So they're fine with proving everybody wrong. They could be a sneaky, tough team, especially if this defense can come together. We know the offense can be dynamic. They got to get healthy. They need Tristan Wirfs back. They need Luke Gedeke out there. Chris Godwin's going to be such a boost, an upgrade, a luxury, as I called him earlier in this segment. But the defense needs to pressure the quarterback more than they did last week against Michael Penix and the Atlanta Falcons. And I think Hassan Reddick's certainly a big upgrade. We saw that last week. He took about a field goal range with a sack. He had some pressures. He made some plays. They need more of that.
Where are you at on Caleb Williams? This is a guy that, I mean, former number 1 overall pick. I want guys to do well, and we know that when it comes to especially football, because there's so many moving parts, like you're looking for, maybe it's not the greatest situation. Well, I look at a running game. I look at all the money that they invest in the offensive line. They brought in Ben Johnson, who was the number 1 candidate in the offseason. You got Adunze, you got Luther Burden, you got DJ Moore, you got defense that looks like they're getting better and improving. And then Caleb just overthrows guys. And I don't know where I'm at with him. I don't know how much better is he going to get, because I feel like their greatness does, our buddy Rick Stroud says, the greatness does show itself early. And I had just this weird, I don't care about what he does with his fingernails and crying to his mother. I don't care about that kind of stuff. I don't see a guy that's going to play winning football. Where are you at with Caleb Williams?
I need to see it out there on the football field.
Right.
And like you, I haven't seen it yet. And Ben Johnson, if there's a guy who's going to be, and there's, it's not just Ben, there's a handful of guys. He could work with Kevin O'Connell. He could work with Sean McVay. He could work with Liam Cohn, Dave Canales. Like, these are quarterback whisperer type guy. Well, Ben Johnson's done it. He's taken Jared Goff and a dynamic Detroit Lions offense and had them playing at such a high level. So he's got the coaching in place now. He's got the talent around him now. It's time to go out there and show it. It's time to go out there and do it. So one game is too early into the Ben Johnson regime. I know we saw all of Caleb last year, and there was a lot of inconsistency. We see flashes of brilliance. We see spurts of him playing up to what the potential could be, why he became a number 1 overall pick, why he was taken ahead of Jaden Daniels, or why Chicago thought he should be. And then we see him take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and came out on that in the Monday night game. And it looked like, all right, things are going to click. This is year 2. He's got Ben Johnson. Things are going to work out. And then as much as I said about JJ growing up over the course of the game, I saw Caleb taking a little bit of a regression over the course of the game. Now, a lot goes into it: protection, scheme, routes, all of that stuff. But I'm certainly not there yet on thinking he can be the answer and be the franchise quarterback for the Bears yet. We just haven't seen it. Too early to write him off, but also not convinced that he's that guy yet. They haven't had a 4,000-yard passer in the history of the Chicago Bears, and it's. I mean, sometimes you can throw for 4,000 yards because you're down 38 points every game, and you got to throw for 300 garbage yards. So that's not the be-all, end-all stat, but not sure they're going to get that this year either.
I had Blake Bortles lead me to a fantasy championship one year just because he got all them dirty garbage yards in the fourth quarter. Is it Mike McDaniel, Brian Daboll, or somebody else that'll be the first head coach fired, do you think, in 2025?
Just because of the nature of the Giants organization, the patience that they have, I don't think it'll be Daboll. I think it would be Stephen Ross pulling that trigger first. Giants weren't terrible in week 1. The offense didn't click, but they've got a strong enough defense.
Yeah, their defensive line.
One of the top defensive lines, front sevens. They're going to be in games. They're going to be competitive. What I saw from Miami in week 1, and then given what's happened in the offseason, and you've got some sniping, you've got Tua talking about, I'm in here on Tuesday looking at film. I want to see who else is in here on Tuesday looking at film. That, to me, is an indication that you've got a head coach who may not be getting that message of unity, that message of work hard and do everything you can to win football games, it's not getting across to players. And it certainly was reflective in the way they performed. They didn't show up against the Indianapolis Colts in week one. And for that to happen, I think is something that is gonna, it's not gonna go over well with the Miami front office, and it leads me to believe that if it were to be one of those two, like he's on the hottest seat right now, Jay, and they've got to turn it around, and they've got to turn it around quickly. They're in a division that's owned by the Buffalo Bills. I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I don't know. I don't believe there's another. I think the Bills can clinch this division by November again, maybe before Thanksgiving, right? Just a matter of numbers, just a matter of days.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You think about the AFC East for like the last 25 years, it's either been the Patriots for a while or Buffalo for a while. And if you're the Miami Dolphins and you're making Daniel Jones look like Andrew Luck, yeah, I think that's a problem. Rob, before I let you go, I want to ask you about the whole thing with the voting with the young lady for the AP votes. You and I have talked about before about your you have the baseball Hall of Fame, right? ML Pro.
Yeah.
My memory serves me well, baby. There you go. But I've talked to you about this. I've talked to a bunch of my other buddies up in the press box at Amalie Arena. There is such an importance. And listen, you don't have USF in your top 25, fine. But to be very flippant about the process, I think is something that's harmful because there are people like yourself that care so much about it. You wear that as a badge of honor. Like, hey, we're doing our duty for our public. Like, hey, we are the voice of the public. We want to make sure that we're trying to get this right as close as humanly possible. What did you make of that process? And take us through the mindset of a guy that has a vote like that and kind of the importance, because I know it's not something that you yourself take lightly.
I'm not too familiar with that, Jay, because I mean, even though I work at the AP, I'm focused on the NFL. Right. So I'm not involved, and I'm so focused during the season on the NFL. And there's so much happening this week. We're launching a new show called On Football with the AP's Rob Maaddi. Josh Allen is my first guest, and that's going to drop maybe any minute. Like as we're talking right now, that could be potentially dropping. So that's been my primary focus, and it just didn't stay in tune. I'm not sure what happened with everything there. I do know this. Anything that you do in
Rob, let me tell you real quick what happened. So she was on a podcast. She didn't have USF in her top 25. She also moved Florida up after the loss. And then the young lady was on a podcast with USC, and she was just like, well, it's going to figure itself out anyways. And, it's not that big of a deal. And I'm just glad that people can have fun with it. And I think that was the thing that rubbed people the wrong way. Listen, if you had an argument of like, I didn't think that Boise State and Florida were as good, that's why I have USF on the outside. I think, all right, agree to disagree. But the fact that it was just rubbed a lot of people, and we're talking up to 20 million views of this video being disseminated on the internet, because she was very just kind of like happy-go-lucky, like my vote doesn't really count. And I think that's what rubbed people the wrong way. I just wanted to give you some context there.
Yeah, I can understand where some people might have those feelings, and I can only speak for myself and how I approach anything. And the only vote I have is the Baseball Hall of Fame. I don't have the Pro Football Hall of Fame yet. Maybe at some point they'll give me a Pro Football.
You on there. We got to get you in there.
Hall of Fame. I've had a baseball for the past 10, maybe 12, 13 years, and it's a difficult process because you're determining the guys who are ultimately like, that's the greatest individual accomplishment that you can have in that profession, whether it's football, baseball, basketball. So when I get that ballot in November, man, and who's going to be, before you see the ballot, who's going to be on it, who's going to be eligible. And there's a lot of opinions regarding the Baseball Hall of Fame because we had so many guys who are on that ballot who have been there's been questionable credentials because of the implications of all of the PED use. So that's tough. It's tough to take all of that into consideration. And then what makes it even more difficult in baseball to me, Jay, is the different eras. When you have a guy now, like you go through the era of players, the pitcher being dominant, then the hitters hitting 50, 60, 65 home runs. And then it flips back, and then the baseballs may or may not be juiced. So like, how do you compare a guy in the 2020s with a guy in the 1940s? So you can take numbers and look at it. It's just so difficult, and I take it so seriously. And there's always going to be people who are upset with baseball. I have 10. You can only vote 10 guys in. Sometimes I look at a ballot and I go, there's 13 worthy. There's
Right.
12 worthy. Who do
Right.
I leave off? Right?
Right.
Who do I leave off? And then sometimes some voters have to look at it like, well, maybe I'll leave off someone who's going to easily get in
Right.
because he doesn't need that vote. But then maybe your 11th and 12th guy or someone else may need that vote to continue to be on the ballot. So all of that is certainly taken into consideration, and that's how I approach it. And if the Pro Football Hall of Fame eventually decides one day that they want to give me a vote for the NFL, for the football, I certainly will. It's a little different process though, Jay, with football versus
Right.
baseball, because the voters go in, they kind of have one guy from each city, and that guy, if your player played there, they campaign, they kind of present their
Mhm.
case for them. So that it's a little bit, it's a much different process. I kind of like it maybe better. I
Mhm.
appreciate the vote that I have in baseball, but sometimes I feel like maybe the system could be flawed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the one drawback though about the football thing is you have to be locked in a room with Ira Kaufman for that long. And be like, hey, Jay
Yeah.
Bird, Mike Evans, 11 years, 1,000 yards. That's how we do it. Rob Maaddi, let everybody know the show again with Josh Allen.
It's on football with the AP's Rob Maaddi. It's going to drop today. It's going to be our first episode launching. We had a soft launch last week. We've got a hard launch this week. First guest this week is NFL MVP Josh Allen, kind enough to spend some time. And it was a great conversation. Talked about comebacks, leadership, even a little bit of marital advice. I think he's married to someone famous, Jay.
Yeah, a little bit, man. This guy's setting the bar high. He's thoughtful and well versed in multiple sports, and as well as his faith, letting everybody know, man, there's a place for everything. Great conversations. The one and only Rob Maaddi, Associated Press senior NFL writer. You always make my show a whole heck of a lot better. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
You got it, Jay. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. All over it, man. Unbelievable. What a fantastic guest. One of my favorites that we have, Rob Maaddi from the AP. On football. Check him out, Rob Maaddi and Josh Allen. Make sure you guys are checking out my friends over at the Honest Hammer Custom Builders LLC. Have you seen the website today? Yay. You haven't? What's wrong with you? It's right here. Boom, boom, boom. There you go, folks. Folkarooskies. Honest Hammer Custom Builders, 813-244-0956. Licensed and insured Florida General Contractor, CGC 153-1166. No project too big, no project too small. Custom homes, they're building a couple new ones in St. Pete. Kitchen, bathroom remodels, commercial and new construction, interior and structural renovations. They've got you. And he's a Tampa guy, Tampa Bay through and through. Former baseball umpire. Russ is a very unique guy, very interesting cat. And I've loved getting to know him over the years. Again, shoot him a call, 813-244-0956. Tell him that you heard it right here on the Jay Recher podcast and get you a discount. TheHonestHammer@gmail.com, www.TheHonestHammer.com. Again, general contractor company, CGC 153-116. There's so many horror stories out there about contractors and people you can't trust when you get them to work on your house. That's not my friend Russ and my friends over at Honest Hammer. They are the best. Again, tell them that you heard it right here on the Jay Recher podcast. We love them, and I love you. Appreciate you all. All right, before we go, we're not going full screen here. Where are we at, bro? No. Still no. There. Yes. We're out here. We're there. It's like, what the hell's going on here? Okay. So let's finish off with some of the news that we heard from One Buccaneer Place today. Hold on, folks. Luke Gedeke, foot injury, did not practice. Todd Bowles said they're going to see if he can push through and play Sunday at Houston, but they play Monday night at Houston, so he ain't playing Sunday at Houston. Logan Hall initially didn't practice from what we said, but he was out there, so it's good. Todd Bowles said Chase McLaughlin getting hit shouldn't have rattled him. He seemed irked that a hit would shake up football players. That's the way it goes. Todd Bowles said Monday is in play for Godwin and worse, but realistically it would be extremely unlikely, both coming back from long absence, so the physical ramp-up usually isn't 4 days. Yeah, I'm not looking at that, especially if they weren't out there with the guys today. No big deal. That's it is what it is. Take your time, get those guys back when you can. Just trying to see if there's any other news out there. Luke Gedeke, that's the big thing, isn't it? I mean, that is the big thing. Rick Stroud, Tampa Bay Times. Bucs coach Todd Bowles said Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs could be in play this week, as I just alluded to. They ran around and did some things in practice Thursday. Realistically, I think the plan is for them to practice twice this week as part of their conditioning to play down the road. Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense. Take your time with these guys. Get them out there in due time with the rest of the crew, and it's like a positive in the right direction. Todd Bowles also said Benjamin Morrison is in play to be active this week and would likely play special teams, but could get into the game at corner. This is something that we saw a couple of weeks ago. Well, not a couple weeks, a couple of years ago when Jamel Dean, remember he was banged up at the end of the year where he didn't play defensive back, but he played team. So you could have something similar to Benjamin Morrison. So really, really good stuff today. Godwin and Wirfs did not practice in full. They were out there with their team. Like Wirfs wasn't on the offensive line with the guys. So they're not playing Monday. I know he's not going to say it, but I mean, he's not out there with the guys. There's no reason. Just take your time. Take your time. Get him in week 3. Get him in week 4. Got time all the way this week until Monday. I'm cool. I'm cool with this. I feel good. I mean, will I feel good if Charlie Hicks? Oh, good stretch. Charlie Heck at right tackle. Then Luke Gedeke, no. So maybe we have to get our hard hats on for the Bucs offensive line. Let's get the hard hats on. We got to do something with the hard hats, right? I think that's what we need to do. We need to do something. Who's got an idea? Let's do something with the hard hat brought to us by my friends over at The Honest Hammer. What could we do, like a segment on the show for the hard hats? Maybe we can give them out on Monday, right? We could do the Honest Hammer hammers. Honest Hammer badasses of the weekend. We'll do that on Monday. What do you guys think? Got any ideas? Because I really like this hat. I honestly don't know when I'm ever going to wear this. The only time I'm going to wear this is probably on the show. The Hammerhead Award for the Sharks out there. I don't know. Most physical, something like that. That's difficult though, right? Like, best O lineman or D lineman, maybe. But I got to be able to do it for, because it's going to be tough. If it's something like that, like you got to watch every single game. Like you don't know how good an offensive lineman plays unless you're watching the game, right? And I also want to be able to give out this award to like MMA fighters and basketball players and baseball players and things like that. The Hammerhead of the weekend. I don't know. We'll think about it. I'm going to get with, let Ian pick it. Now, he ain't watching all the games. I'm watching more games than him. But I'll talk to Russ. Maybe we have a good idea. We could do something like that on the show. I think that'll be a lot of fun, too. Some really, really good stuff there. Rob with a ton of information. Let me see if there's anything else. I want to make sure we got everything here. So, yeah, I think that's the big thing, guys and gals, is the Luke Gedeke foot injury. Didn't practice. We'll see if he can push through and play on Monday night against the Houston Texans. Hopefully he can, because they need him. They need him out there. That's the big thing. Good to see Tristan and those guys moving around. That is great. That is a great sign. And then also, anybody going to Houston for the game? Anybody out there? Not me. I really wish I was going to Miami for the game, for the Bucs game. That'd be pretty badass. All right. So there you have it. That's the big news today. So Chris Godwin and Tristan Wirfs. Oh, Baker Mayfield speaking today too, saying the issues with the run game due largely to Atlanta's defense playing well. Baker Mayfield saying having Chris Godwin on the field brought some extra juice to practice today. It's a beautiful thing. We got to love it. Are they speaking right now? I think they are. this? Are we allowed to play this? Buccaneers press conference. It's 272 watching. All right, I know Baker's speaking right now, so anything else? Nah, we're not going to wait there. All right, that'll wrap it up for me today. Tomorrow, we're going to talk more and more about the weekend ahead, week 2 of the NFL, week 3 of college football. Our last kind of chat about USF against Miami down there in Coral Gables. That's going to be a lot of fun there. Are they in Coral Gables? The stadium's not Coral Gables. I know the university is. And, of course, NFL week 2 matchups. We'll discuss that. The big boxing match between Canelo and Crawford. Cannot wait. A big thank you to our guest today, our pal Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press, Collin Sherwin, Bay Area Examiner. Make sure you follow me on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, Instagram. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. A big thank you to Lady Evil. And a big thank you to Louie. You guys are the best. If you guys, anybody else out there want to contribute via the super chat, $1, $2, $5, $10, $20, whatever you can do to help, I thoroughly thank you so much. Could not do this without you. And of course, our big sponsor here, Honest Hammer Custom Builders, LLC. Just again, as we wrap things up, we finish the show the way we started it. Treat people well, on the 24th anniversary of 9/11. Let's just be better. Let's just be better. Let's do better by each other. And life is short, man. Life is short. Let's find ways to come together rather than to split apart. Trevor Sycamore joins us at 12:30 tomorrow. Gonna have another fun show for you guys. Everybody have a wonderful Thursday night. Enjoy the game. Should be a good one. Washington and Green Bay. I love you all. We'll see you tomorrow at noon right here on the Jay Recher Podcast. I'm gone.